Welcome back to another video from your friends here at Altitude University. I'm Chiron, and today we're going to talk about how to color grade your drone footage to upgrade your cinematic shots to the next level. Before we begin, please subscribe to our channel so we can continue to provide you with more drone-related content. Have you ever shot the most amazing footage you've ever captured with all the perfect conditions, but you're stuck wondering, why doesn't this look as good as other people's drone shots I see online? The answer may very well be color grading. This is an often overlooked aspect of video editing, but it is one that is essential to make your drone shots stand out and look as good as possible. Good color grading can make all the difference between a shot looking unremarkable versus breathtaking. If you saw our previous video about 5 tips for more cinematic drone shots, which will be linked in the description below, you'll remember that it's best to film your drone footage in a log format to provide the most flexibility when color grading in post. In this video, I will be walking you through the process of color grading log footage I shot on my DJI Air 2S. Speaking of, let's hop right into Premiere Pro and get started. My editing software of choice is Adobe Premiere Pro, but you can follow along with any other editing software and get the same results. As you can see, our log footage starts off very flat, lacking lots of contrast and saturation. These are things that we will have to add in ourselves through color grading. Our first step will be adjusting the exposure of our shot. We want to make sure that we establish a well-exposed base to work on top of. Looking at our waveform, we want to try and get the exposure right around the 50 mark, while making sure not to clip any of our highlights at the top. Next, we want to adjust our highlights and shadows to add contrast to the shot. The goal here is to expand the waveform as much as possible without clipping our highlights or shadows. Next, we will adjust our whites and blacks to expand the waveform just a bit more. Again, we want to make sure that neither the whites or blacks are clipping in our image. After doing that, we will make our way back up and add additional contrast to our shot if necessary and boost the saturation of our shot. Do these adjustments to whatever looks best for the given shot that you are color grading. To end off our basic adjustments, we will adjust the white balance of the shot. If your shot is too warm or too cool for your liking, then you can make that adjustment here. But if you're happy with the original white balance it was shot in, then you can just leave it be. Now your shot should be looking pretty good. It's certainly come a long way from the flat image we began with, as it now has lots of contrast and saturation. If you're happy with how your shot looks now, then you can totally call it good and move along. But if you want to take your shot to the next level by adding some extra tweaks, then continue to follow along. If we go down to the color wheel section, we can control the color hue of our shadows, midtones, and highlights directly. This is another great way to correct your shot's white balance if it is off, but we can also use it to add some creative color grading to our image. Let's say we want to accentuate the warm sunset hues on our image's highlights. What we can do is drag the color wheel for the highlights towards orange and add a bit more of that color into the sky. We can also add some nice color contrast by making our shadows a bit more teal by adjusting the shadows color wheel. Next, if we go back up to the curve section, we can perform lots of further adjustments that can change our image in some drastic ways. First, let's take a look at the hue versus saturation curve. By adding points and adjusting them on this curve, we can increase or decrease the saturation of certain colors in our image. An example of a useful situation for this curve would be increasing the saturation of the red and orange hues in a sunset. Next is a hue versus hue curve, where we can adjust the hue of certain colors in our shot. A great example of when this curve is useful is when you want to do something like making the greens in the trees of a drone shot more yellow or more green as a creative choice. The last curve we'll be looking at is the luma versus saturation curve. What I like to do with this curve is make points on both ends of it and drag them all the way down. What this does is it makes sure that your whites and blacks aren't affected by any other adjustments like the color wheel adjustments from earlier, which helps lead to a more cinematic image. And there you have it. That's everything you need to know to color grade cinematic drone footage. Obviously, there are many more color grading tools that you can use to further tweak your image, but if you learn how to master the process we just went over, you'll have everything you need to make your shots pop and stand out. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. From all of us here at Altitude University, stay safe out there and happy flying.